going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports NBA Hardwood Show. I'm your host, Mangone. I'm here on a Friday, and on Fridays, we get JT Hayes. We typically have Hoop, but we have AP here repping the Chiefs gear. But we got to go on over to JT Hayes because he is here on Fridays. And AP, I don't know if you noticed, but we got JT with the telescope room, it looks like. I don't know if this is the room that he takes the telescope and he looks out at the stars, but he's in a nice little setup. He's not in the normal spot. JT, where are you at? What are your weekend plans? The people need to know.
I think more importantly, you should be focusing on the fact that I almost never take shows off, and that even though it's Friday, I'm clearly away with the family. I'm here. I'm here for you. Been looking at the slate, excited about it, and I'm up in the mountains. Got a weekend away with some friends. Spent yesterday with my wife's family, and then today we're about an hour and a half from Atlanta, and gonna do some cool things this weekend. A good dinner plan tonight, and then a little bit of a same thing tomorrow. Of course, a lot of sports along the way, and it's going to be good. So hope everybody out there had a very, very nice holiday yesterday, and it's Christmas season. So that's something to be excited about as well.
Oh man, we should get into this because it's the day after Thanksgiving. And AP, did you hang the Christmas lights up today? Was today the day you were out there? Or does the wife do it like Big T's? Amber's out there always hanging it up. Do you hire someone to do it? What's the word, AP?
Yeah, option number three. I hire someone to put the lights up out of my house. So we got steep peaks. I'm not getting up there. The wife's not getting up there. So it is what it is. I'm a busy guy. I got a lot on my plate. Hired out. We move on. We always looking out for our members. It's what we have to do over here. And I'm still recovering from DeAndre Swift, Darren Waller. Had them in my lineup, and had Josh Reynolds in there, had D-Jax in there. You just hate to see it, but luckily for all of us, we have a really nice slate tonight, and hopefully people are moving a little slow today because I think we'll have a nice edge. I think there's a lot of money to be made.
Yep, a lot of money to be made, and there's lots of money to be made over at Run Pure Sports. You know why? Because we have all the sports, one price. We got college football, which we'll have tomorrow. We had it today. We got college basketball slate tonight. We got NHL. We have it all. No MMA this weekend, but listen, we got all the NFL stuff that you need, all the shows for you to listen to. And on top of that, you know what else we got? We got a free show Saturday night, the Millie Maker Roundtable show. That'll be free on the YouTube channel. So subscribe and you can get notified when it goes live. I believe it's 7 p.m. Eastern. It could be 8. Just be sure to check the schedule. If you subscribe, it'll just tell you what time it's going live. You can head over to YouTube and check that out. Also, hit that like button because that helps us out a ton and we really appreciate it. JT Hayes, obviously you haven't hung the Christmas lights out, but like when it's Christmas time, right? Do you have a giant, giant Santa Claus that's blown up inflatable in front of your house? What is the JT Hayes Christmas situation over there?
I did a couple of years ago. I got one of those like inflatable mailboxes with Santa attached to it. And the reason why we had at the time a little pug, now we have that pug passed away, sadly. He was 14. Now we have another one that's 2, and they hate this thing. And it's so funny to see them go out and growl at it, and they pee all over it. And it just brings joy to me. It brings joy to the neighbors. So I might be putting one out. We'll see. But I know already because it's going to be a busy December. My wife has already said she insists every year we have to have a natural tree. I saw some people debating this on Twitter. I'm kind of agnostic about it. Natural, artificial, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. She wants the live one. And she said, because there's some travel towards the end of the month, that we have to get it early. We have to get it probably, honestly, maybe before the 10th of December. So that's something that I'm going to be doing. I can't hire anyone out because I got to go with her. She's got to feel every tree. It's a whole ordeal.
Oh yeah, I haven't done one of those in a while. I think the last time I went, we went really late to get a tree, JT, me and my parents, and they were negotiating, trying to get like playing good cop, bad cop for a cheaper deal. My parents are absurd like that, though. It was a good time. AP, what kind of tree do you get? Do you got one of those big ones, the 10-footers hanging in there in the window for the people to see? What do you do? Do you get a real tree, fake tree? What's the word there?
Yeah, the wife gets a fake tree. We just store it in our basement or in the garage. I don't know where, but I literally put up zero Christmas stuff. So, and it's been up for a week now. So I got some shit from our guy BigT about that. I posted a picture of the setup in the basement the other day. We had a bunch of people over for the Husker game, and yeah, she had the tree up downstairs, and I don't care when it goes up as long as I don't have to do that stuff. I could care less if it's up before Thanksgiving. I mean, as long as it's not up like in the summer, then I'm good, because that would just be, I mean, if you have your Christmas stuff up like in the summer, you're a psycho. I mean, we do have a very strict rule in this house. When January comes, everything gets taken down. So I hate to see it when we're driving around in February and the lights are still up on houses. It tilts me. So, you know, if you're out there, if you want to just do your part, take your Christmas stuff down in January. If we could all do that, it would just be a good thing. It would be, you know, good mojo.
Of course, we want to spread that good mojo. Also, we don't want to tilt the people. Like, we don't want to tilt AP. We don't want to tilt the people. So before you get in the comments and say, when are you going to get to NBA? Like, we're going to get there now. But first, real quick, members never win. We got to talk about that. Don't tilt yet. We got to talk about some of these wins. We had some really good ones this weekend, or not this weekend, this week, which was actually yesterday. We had some NFL ones. I saw 132K for Max Hankins for, I think that's a little bit of an older one, but I saw a 50K win the other day. I don't know if the producer has that screenshot, but I definitely saw that. It was an absolutely awesome team. And one thing, you know, if you are a member at Run PR Sports, you get the core plays. And I specifically remember looking at Big T's core later on in the night, because I saw someone say, oh, Big T's core was good. So I was like, oh, let me see what it was. And the key with Big T's core that made it so great, and not to rub it in AP, but he had a tight end in there, Knox, and then he had 3 running backs, and it wasn't Swift. So, like, you just didn't fall in the crappy Waller or Knox bill, which was great. And they were some pretty good plays. And that's what you get at Run Pure Sports. You get some really awesome content. You get the playbook, the core plays, you get AP's heat chart, which is huge for NBA and helps you build out your lineups. There's some awesome stuff. We also had Mike T win 8.7K in NFL, and then Shar 19 win 15K in NFL. So lots of winners. But we can dive in and talk NBA before the chat gets all reckless over there and just is yelling, hey, I want to hear the NBA winners now. So let's get to the NBA winners, and let's get right to AP. AP, first game up, and it's a 7 o'clock game. We have a massive slate. It's the Bulls and the Magic, and the Bulls have gotten healthier. The Magic, they have not. They definitely have some opportunity here. The prices have gone up slightly, but the big debate on this slate is, do you want to lock yourself into some Magic when we have some later plays that we can go to, or some later news that we're waiting on? How are you handling this Magic value in cash games and tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, one, I'm not going to worry about cash games since I don't play them and could care less. We'll leave that for the GOAT Mangone to worry about. Two, the prices are up a little bit on these Magic guys. So someone like Jalen Suggs is not quite the value that he was on the previous slate when he was 4.8K. I mean, yeah, only a $400 difference, but still, that $400 matters. It always matters. Price matters. Gary Harris 3.2. Like, I just feel like we're gonna have better value on the slate. I mean, Gary Harris is not good at basketball. He played 35 minutes, and I feel like he had kind of a ceiling game for him, and he put up 25 DK points. So if you want to tilt someone, I'm telling you right now, like, I would not be surprised if Gary Harris played 35 minutes again and failed to hit 20 plus fantasy points. That's just the type of player that he is. I do have some mild interest in Franz Wagner, and then Wendell Carter Jr. I think is someone that we could go back. I don't mind this matchup against the Bulls, against power forwards. We've seen some have success. I believe Terrence Ross is still questionable. He's 3.8. At least if he plays, he's someone that'll come off the bench and shoot the ball. But it was really different. So if we go back to that slate where the Magic, we were playing 3 to 4 of them in most of our lineups, it was a different slate. The matchup was as good as it gets. The prices were all lower. It was a much better spot. This spot is not as good, in my opinion. On the Bulls side, we can almost cross. I mean, Lonzo 6'8", like, he's fine. We've seen him have his best games in these kind of bad matchups against bad teams. So if you want to do that, and then we got Nikola Vucevic, if you like revenge. I believe this is his first time back in Orlando since he left that team. I know they played last year, but I think that game was in Chicago. So 8-8. I know he was coming off COVID. I don't know how bad it was or anything like that, but he played 26 minutes against Houston, and he was really good in those 26 minutes. So if he plays 32 here, I think he could do very well against his former team.
Yeah, revenge is always a good time. And hey, Vucevic could definitely have a good time here, but I don't know if it's the best allocation of my salary. I don't know if I want to pay 8.8K over on DraftKings for him. Some of these Magic options, they are interesting, but I kind of agree with what AP was saying. Sure, like Suggs makes some sense. Wagner makes some sense. Wendell Carter Jr. at 5'6", it's not bad, but my only real issue here is, do I want to play these guys when I think there's some better opportunities? And I like the Magic more when they were playing the Hornets. Now they're playing the Bulls, and it's just a little bit of a different situation. So I'm torn at what to do with this game. I think there is some opportunity in tournaments. JT, I'll go over to you. Are you looking to get exposure to the Bulls and Magic on your teams?
Not really. I think the Magic are going to be, there's going to be some ownership there. Wagner and Wendell Carter Jr. in particular looking like they could get into the 20% range, maybe even a little bit higher on an 11-game slate where it's the first game. The Bulls have not been a team to target this year. There've only been a handful of games and they've been really close games, and they just play good defense. They've got 4 guys, 3 of them soak up the majority of the usage, with Vuk now back healthy, Levine, DeMar DeRozan. So even on the Bulls side, it's really hard to get excited about any of them at their prices. And the other thing is, if the Bulls come out and they play their brand of efficient basketball, it is kind of hard to see this game being a game where guys will have to play well into the fourth quarter to get their, to be able to get to their ceiling. So I think AP hit the nail on the head that there's better value in faster games that are going to be played a little bit after this, and then also games that I think could be much closer.
All right, well, let's go on over to another game that could be close. It's the Suns and the Knicks. JT, I'm going to go right back to you. This game is, it's in play, but I don't know what to do because we need this news, right? We know about the Derrick Rose status and all these other guys. They have a nice core starting 5 that they will give run. They've been terrible defensively. That starting 5 has not been that great. But the Suns are playing at one of the faster paces in the league right now. If you saw 216 total between the Suns and Knicks last year, and these teams are pretty identical looking wise from last year's team, you'd be like, okay, slam the under on this one. It seems like an easy one, but I don't know exactly what to do with this game because I think you can take some shots on some guys like, sure, Chris Paul in tournaments, I don't mind. Ayton at 7-4, he could have a big game. You can make an argument for some of these Knicks if Rose is out, but I need that news. And I think there's some other better opportunities later on in the night that we can go to. So Suns and Knicks, are you just fading this game or are you playing it, JT?
Yeah, pretty much. These Knicks have been tough to play. Thibodeau's rotations have been a bit wild, and not necessarily in a bad way in terms of basketball, but in terms of DFS. I don't know which guard is going to get 30 minutes. I don't know which of the centers. Mitchell Robinson is questionable. Don't know which of those guys are going to get the most minutes. Julius Randle is up at 10-1 on a slate where we have, in my opinion, much better, higher priced options. So I think it's tough on the Knicks side, especially if Rose is in. If Rose is in, I've seen Rose pop up in a couple of optimizers, and I just think, I don't know that there's a need to take that kind of risk on this slate with the other plays that we have. You talk about the Suns. The one good thing about the Suns is they do play that core rotation. Their starters have been getting pretty good minutes outside of maybe Chris Paul. And the reason why he hasn't been getting as many minutes is because this is a team that's built for the playoffs. And so early in the season, they've had success. Campaign has played really well. This Knicks team has been shredded by point guards so far this season. Maybe that's a product of all these guys shuffling in and out for New York. So Campaign is just 3.5 if you wanted to take a flyer there. But I think there's better value as well. So Devin Booker in the Garden, always interesting. Book seems to get up for these spots a little bit more than Chris Paul does sometimes. So 8.5, 8.3, I wouldn't play them together, but for tournaments, I think they're interesting pieces that are going to come in around 2% owned.
All right. I don't got too much else really to say about this game, but we got to get AP's take on it. AP, Suns and Knicks. If Rose is out, yes, I think we'll discuss it a little bit more, but I don't think I want to mess with this game too much. I think there's better opportunity on this slate later on. How about you?
Yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on Taj Gibson, Mitch Robinson, Derrick Rose, all questionable. And yeah, I mean, JTA's hit the nail on the head. I mean, with the analysis, like Fibs and this rotation, we saw Kimball Walker get the start, but he hasn't played in a fourth quarter, and like it's something insane, like 5 games in a row, I believe. Don't quote me if I'm wrong on that, but like he is nowhere to be found in the fourth quarter. He's 5K. Even if Rose is out, which he was last game in one of the best matchups for point guards against the Lakers, they didn't go with Kemba Walker. They went with the bigger lineup. They went with Alex Burks was in there. Emmanuel Quickly was another guy that got quite a bit of run. So, I mean, you could make a case for some of these guys. Evan Fournier was another guy, but his price is up a little bit. He's so just raw scoring dependent typically. So like I wouldn't feel safe about him. Even though like teams have been putting up decent fantasy scores against the Suns team, they've been decent defensively. I mean, we can't say they're bad on defense because they've won a ton of games in a row. But I do believe, like Mangone said, it is, maybe credit to their pace that they're playing at this season. So again, keep an eye on the news here. I'm not going to overreact right now. And even if Rose is out, I don't think I'm going to overreact. I might bump up a guy like Alex Burks. I might bump up a guy like Evan Fournier, but still, I'm going to run it. And if they're not hitting my builds, which I'm not quite sure if they will or not, because I do think we have better value on the slate. That's just kind of how I'm going to approach this game. And then JTA said it best with Devin Booker in the Garden. I would have some mild interest in him. And then I think DeAndre Ayton, too, is someone that we could look to. Centers, just with the size of this Knicks team, have had some decent success against them.
All right, let's head on over to the Timberwolves and Hornets game. We'll talk about that because this is another one that, typically I think I would like it. I love to attack the Hornets. You do get a nice little gap in between the games from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. You get a nice hour where you can just grab the telescope, JT, do a little stargazing for a little bit, get a nice session in, and then just, fix up those lineups if you need to. Now, maybe you lock yourself into the early games. Maybe you just do a full-on game stack of the Timberwolves and the Charlotte Hornets, which, yes, it could get there. You could pay for LaMelo Ball. Terry Rozier has been on fire. Miles Bridges has been just a breakout candidate this year. On the Timberwolves side, you got D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, all 3 guys that you can make arguments are good plays. I don't want to play all 3 in the same lineup. I might mix and match them throughout my lineups, though. I love myself some Anthony Edwards today. I think D'Angelo Russell on FanDuel is a good option. JT, how about you? How are you handling the Hornets and Timberwolves?
Yeah, it's the beauty about being up in the mountains. You break the telescope out and you can basically see Pluto and many of the other planets as well. And, this game is a very interesting game here because of the pace that both teams play at. There's also a significant injury in terms of opening up minutes on the Minnesota side, with Patrick Beverley expected to miss a couple of weeks. That's been another crazy story this season. Patrick Beverley always played big minutes, but he was very sporadic in terms of when he would actually produce anything. And he was playing really, really well in this offense for this team. And now you're going to get, even though he's going to come off the bench, Malik Beasley at just 3.9. I think one of the better values. He's going to be highly owned, but I think at 3.9 against this Charlotte team that gives up, I think it's the second most fantasy points of any team on the slate here tonight, he's a good play. D'Angelo Russell is a very good play. And then Karl Anthony Towns may be my favorite play on this team, priced down at 9.5 against perhaps Mason Plumlee. If he's healthy, he has been questionable all day, I think, for the last couple of days. See if he plays. And then if he doesn't, you're going to have 10 minutes of PJ Washington and then Nick Richards and some of these much, much smaller guys that are going to have a very hard time rebounding and an even more difficult time defending Karl Anthony Towns. So I like him quite a bit here. On the Charlotte side, the prices are a little bit up for some of the guys that I would play, with the exception of Terry Rozier. Like you mentioned, he's been on fire, and he's just on DraftKings, still 6K in a matchup where on tonight's slate, the Charlotte Hornets have one of the best matchups at the guard position. So I can see playing LaMelo at 10-4. He can put up 60 in this matchup, no question. I can see playing Terry Rozier. I know that Cody Martin is popping a bit. He's been getting more minutes, especially if Plumlee is out. I think he's probably a guy who's going to see 30 minutes in a really, really good matchup. And you mentioned Miles Bridges. I played him a bunch of times this year. I don't know if he's where I want to spend that money at the forward position, but definitely in play as well.
All right. You did mention Malik Beasley, which Patrick Beverley is out, which, hey, that could be really good for Malik Beasley, right? He slides into that role. Here's the problem, though. He's only shooting guard eligible, which, that only takes up to, you can only put him in 3 roster spots. Typically, everyone loves to put their utility as their center because DK makes their guys cheap over there. You don't have as much flexibility with him as you've had in the past to put him in at forward and shooting guard. JT, before I go to AP, does that change anything for you? Because I do think he's one of the better values in the slate. It is also 2 hours before where everything can change. And I do think that's worth mentioning that, hey, being only shooting guard eligible, it could kind of muddy up some stuff there.
Yeah, shooting guard. I mean, you have Terry Rozier, who's someone you could put there. And then you've got a couple of spend ups in the later games. Small forward. It's terrible that he's not eligible for there anymore because I think small forward is one of the more difficult positions on DraftKings tonight. It may have gotten a little bit better here with the news for the Kings, but I think if you look at the way that they've used Beasley, he's coming off a game where I think he had 38 DraftKings points, and talked about Karl Anthony Towns. We're going to talk about some guys later. We've got news about Jokic, who's expensive, right? So you have, I think, in center and utility and maybe even one of the point guard slots, that's where I think the 9 or 10K spends are going to come. So I think there's him and there's one other value that we'll get to later on in terms of the shooting guard position that is very viable here on this slate, and I wouldn't mind it.
All right, AP, I'll go over to you. What do you think of Beasley just being only shooting guard eligible? I think that's a good talking point here. And then also, we can talk about something that we talked in the Discord chat, which you haven't signed up yet at Run Pure. Use that code RPSHeater25, get you 25% off. You can be in the Discord chat and hang out with all the cast of characters, K Phallic and his charts, Pensac and his late night cores, and all the good stuff. It's a fun time. You can hang out with Hector and all of his gifts. It's a good time. AP, I'll go over to you. We talked about the Timberwolves being better defensively this year. Does that get you off some of these Hornets? And with the Beverly news, who are the Timberwolves that you are on?
Yeah, I mean, this Timberwolves team is not the Timberwolves team of last year. They're talking to each other on defense. They're communicating. They're long. They're a long team. They're really athletic. And even with Pat Bev out, you're like, okay, they're down a good defender. You bring in Josh Okogie potentially. You bring in, Jared Vanderbilt's been starting, but another good defender. This team is just very athletic. They've been very good defensively. And I don't think a lot of people actually realize that. So I'm not quick to run it back with any Hornets here. I don't mind a run back, but I almost maybe a Kelly Oubre type off the bench if I was going to run it back in a little stack. Bigs are just smashing the Hornets right now. I hope people are lazy with their process today and look and click on the box score and forget that Karl Anthony Towns had 3 fouls in literally the first 4 minutes of the game. And so what happened is Jared Vanderbilt played a ton of minutes in that first half. We saw Naz Reid come in and play a bunch of minutes. I mean, Jared Vanderbilt did all of his damage in the first half there. You see 38, 39 DraftKings points. The majority of those came via rebounds in the first half without Karl Anthony Towns in there. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying he's not a good play at all. I think he is a good play. He's going to play a ton of minutes here. But I do think we could see a couple bigs here smash. Towns for sure is going to smash, in my opinion. I also think a Naz Reid type could come off the bench and put up a decent number in 18, 20 minutes. They like this guy. I like this guy. He's a fantasy point per minute beast and the absolute nut matchup. Think about Montrezl Harrell. I believe it was against the Hornets in 22 to 24 minutes. This dude put up 40 plus fantasy points just in that short of time. I'm not saying Naz Reid is anything like Trez, but they do have similar styles with how they play. So I think he's a really unique value at 3K. Kind of one of when I'm building my 150 tonight, I'm definitely going to have him included in the player pool there. But yeah, getting back to Malik Beasley, ever since the Nuggets days, I've always been a big fan of Malik Beasley. I will caution you though. We saw this last time. He was in this scenario, didn't get the start, came off the bench. He's raw scoring dependent. You're going to need him to have a good shooting night to get there. If I could just see it in chat right now, like, oh, tilting Malik Beasley, who's 1 for 7 in his first 7 attempts and has 4 DraftKings points after the first quarter. That is a realistic outcome. So again, I don't think he's a guy you ever lock in. I think he's a fine value. I think he's someone in cash games that you're probably considering, but there is definite bust potential there. So keep that in mind. But I'm not going to say he's not a good play at all, because he is. He's 3.9K and he's going to get a ton of minutes tonight.
Yeah, you know what else is in the range of outcomes there, AP? Someone jumps in the Discord chat and goes, Malik Beasley hasn't done anything. What's he doing? Well, he hasn't entered the game yet. Malik is still on the bench and he'll be in a minute. Right, AP?
That will happen. It happens all the time. Yeah.
All right. Well, JT, don't be that guy today, okay? If there's one thing I don't want you to do, don't be that guy, okay? But let's move on over. Let's talk about the next game where we get a nice little gap. This is a great time. Like I said, get the telescope out like JT. Maybe go grab dinner. It's a good time to go grab dinner. Order it right at 7. That's what I do sometimes. Put in the Chick-fil-A, go grab it. I'm home with 30 minutes to be able to, answer the questions, get things done. So that's something I might do tonight. We head on over to the Raptors. We head on over to the Pacers. 209.5 total. And the Raptors are a team that we like to target because Nick Nurse likes to run his players into the ground. He likes to just give them all the minutes in the world. Whoever's starting always feels like they're in play, especially with matchup against the Pacers. And you know what? The Raptors, they play fast. They don't play half court. They just run up the court and they chuck the ball up. And it's a good time to obviously take guys against them. I mean, you have to like Brogdon, LeVert, Sabonis, Turner. The issue you have is, can you play these guys? The prices are a little bit cheaper. And for the past year or so now, they've kind of been staggered. They really haven't all played together. And that's been one of the things that's been nice about these Pacers and why we played them. So JT, it is a nice matchup against the Raptors. The prices are going down. Do you have any interest in these Pacers? And do you have any interest in these Raptors playing a pile of minutes?
Yeah, so it was probably about 2 weeks into the season where I realized I was looking at the Pacers and I'm like, man, they're so cheap. This is going to be great. And I was like, oh, wait a second. This is a Rick Carlisle coach team. And these rotations have been just, again, similar to Thibs, right? He's got a lot of guys. He likes to play these guys. He likes to give everybody a few minutes here and there. And it's sort of like roulette as to who is going to get the big minutes and therefore going to be able to have the big game. Last game, AP talked about one of the best matchups in the NBA for DFS this year, point guards against the Lakers. Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon needed overtime to kind of get close to where he was in contention in tournaments because of these rotations. LeVert is back and somewhat healthy, but he may be on a minutes limit for the next month, the way that he's spreading things out. So you got a bunch of guys playing 20-some minutes. Sabonis isn't playing big minutes. The thing with the Pacers last year is, especially after TJ Warren got hurt, had been hurt, all these guys, they had short rotations. They were getting a ton of run, and it was great. That's not the case this year. On the Toronto side, there at least was some news as of about 15 minutes ago where we were waiting to see what the status was on OG Anunoby. Kem Birch is out. So I do have some interest, depending on how my roster construction works with a guy like Precious Achiuwa at 4-1. He just seems to get 7x his salary every single night when he gets the start. I've been back a couple of games now. And then Van Vliet seems too cheap, The Pacers, another team that gives up a lot of big games to the point guard position. The problem, point guard is loaded tonight, and he's at 8-1, sort of in this range where I think there are some other plays that I would prefer. So it's a tough game here. I don't know how much I'm going to have from this, just because of those reasons.
I also think it does hinge on the OG Anunoby news, right? He could be out. He is questionable right now. That could give those guys bumps, but AP, is that enough to bump them into your lineups? And what are you doing with the Pacers here in this spot?
Yeah, JT Hayes, again, hits the nail on the head. Rick Carlisle, just not a coach we can trust right now. He came out and said that we want to play at a faster pace, but that's not been the case, and at all, in my opinion. I mean, for a few plays, like in transition, when fast breaks are an opportunity. Yeah, any team's going to do that. I mean, why not? The opportunity's there, but we haven't seen them consistently play at a very fast pace. Same with the Raptors too. The Raptors are playing at one of the slowest paces out of any team all season. So the way to attack Toronto right now, they do have one leak. It's, on the wing, shooting guards basically. But Karis LeVert, I mean, I don't trust his minutes. Maybe Chris Duarte comes in and hits some shots. He's 4.1K on DraftKings. He saw 30 minutes against the Lakers. He would be an interesting value that I would only recommend in multi-entry formats. I think he could be pretty sneaky tonight too. It wouldn't surprise, but my fear with him though is he just hasn't shown much of a ceiling, much like all these Pacers guys. I mean, the only guy that's shown any ceiling at all recently seems like Miles Turner, but we haven't seen it in a while. Malcolm Brogdon's going to get ownership tonight. He's 7.5. Safe play, but again, I do worry about the ceiling there. On the Raptors side, the one guy I have interest in is Scotty Barnes. He just plays a ton of minutes. He's a decent producer. He just feels like an overall safe play.
Yep, and Scotty Barnes definitely in play on FanDuel too. I know he's had a pretty good price there recently. Pulling up FanDuel now just to check because his price has been good. Yeah, 6.5. And you have to play two small forwards. I know they have the flexibility, but donate him. I mean, all these guys, I think they're in play. They're interesting options. But again, we got some later news that we're waiting on, and who knows? You can always get hit with some crazy news. This is a really, really big slate. JT, let's slide on over to you and talk about the Washington Wizards and the Oklahoma City Thunder. 206.5 total, which is pretty low, similar to that Raptors and Pacers one. And the Thunders are not that good, but we know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he might not play. And if he doesn't play, it's going to be Lou Dort, Josh Giddey. I think Giddey is the better option. If you have to pick one. And then on the other side with the Wizards, man, they've kind of been off to a rough start over the past couple of days. Couple of games, maybe 5-game stretch. I think they're 1-4 or 1-5 when they kicked off the season really strong. So are the Wizards, are they a good team or are they a bad team? Because at the start of the year, we saw them playing great. And are they just back to their old selves nowadays here, JT?
Yeah, they get off to that hot start. Everybody gets extensions, and then they go on this prolonged losing streak. So kind of a Jekyll and Hyde there. But before I get to this game, I got to say hello to some of the guys in the Discord that are saying hi. B. McNair, Squid, Gary, welcome. And 117 likes. I know what the Friday after Thanksgiving is like. You've got the in-laws over, or you're at the in-laws. You're looking for an escape, and we're giving it to you, and you're giving us 1/3 ratio for likes. Come on, guys. We got to get that number up. The Wizards and Thunder, yeah, it looks like there's people that are interested in playing Lou Dort. And some of these guys, the prices have come up. Even on Giddey. Giddey played in one of the best matchups for point guards with Shea out against the Hawks, and he got you 40. At 6'5", I think I can do better at point guard tonight. I don't know if I can do better at small forward. So perhaps he's in play there on DraftKings. I don't know if these rotations are as consistent as I'd like them for an 11-game slate to play like a Jerome Robinson Earl. Now that he's up over 4K, I'm not going to play Derek Favors. And I think when we look at this, when we look at the Wizards, we think about last year where opponents against the Wizards, this was a fantasy point fest, right? Everyone scored a ton of points. Hasn't really been the case this year. And so I worry about that a little bit. Shea was upgraded to questionable today. And if he plays, we're going to be off the guards for sure. On the other side of this matchup, it's been a little while since Brad Beal has had a ceiling game. His price has come down now to 9.1K on DraftKings. I think he's interesting at low ownership in tournaments. And then AP talked about this guy earlier. Always tough. Almost rarely do I do this to play a 6K guy off the bench. But just like the matchup for the Charlotte Hornets, where these two guys went nuts, bigs against Oklahoma City have been absolutely feasting. And so Gafford gets the start. He plays a few minutes, and then it could be the Monty Harrell show at 6.3K on DraftKings. I think he's somewhat interesting for tournaments and really multi-entry only, but he's in a spot where he could put up, 7-8x his salary in just the 25 to 28 minutes that he normally gets.
And JT, we also have you said B Nairs in the Discord saying hello. He's also saying hello in the YouTube chat. He wants to know, how was Thanksgiving at the Lillards? That's what he wants to know. Do you have any Thanksgiving NBA updates for us from the parents?
Yeah, I wasn't with Dame. I wasn't with Dame this week. I was encouraged and excited about his performance the other night, even though it came in a loss. Give them a pass because it was on a back-to-back. And we'll talk about the Kings and pace and what we're seeing. That's another interesting game later. But yeah, Thanksgiving was good. Hope it was good for you as well, B-Mac.
Yep. Hopefully it was good for you. The Lakers are getting up there. We got to get them moving. AP, we did get some news. So before you talk about Montrezl Harrell and some of these Wizards, I know you've been on them this year. I don't know if this is a spot that you're going to be on them, but the news is Mason Plumlee. He is a game time decision. Terrence Ross, game time decision. Taj Gibson out. Derrick Rose out. Mitchell Robinson will play. Anything jump out to you there? And then talk about this Wizards game.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch Robinson, if there's no restrictions there, I mean, maybe a fine play. Gosh, just back to that situation we talked about. Always a fan of Alex Burks, but again, even with Derrick Rose out, we're going to see a rotation between Kemba, between Burks, between Quickly, and any of these guys can run point. We often see Julius Randle run point. We can see RJ Barrett run point. All of these guys can handle the ball. So I don't feel good about any of their rotations at all. It's, if you're a Thibs insider and you know what it's going to be, hit me up. I would love that information. So, but yeah, on to the Wizards game. I don't have a ton to add, to be honest. I've really tried to avoid targeting the Thunder just out of concern of their rotation. It hasn't been that good. I mean, Giddey's been priced appropriately. I wish they would give him more minutes. It seems like he's capped at 34, but again, he's their main usage guy. He's been their best player. They need to give this guy more minutes. Everything about his game looks really good. I don't see why they're playing him 30, 31, to 32 minutes. I would like to see 36 to 38. He's a young guy. I think he'd handle that. The Wizards, they've been playing again at a slower pace, decent defensively. So Giddey, I have him marked as fine. Lu Dort, fine. Lu Dort, just such a bad shooter, but he's going to be out there and he's going to be taking shots. Obviously, an upgrade here if Shea's in, if Shea's out, if Shea is in, downgrading all these guys, and I don't think I'll have exposure to many of them at all. On the Wizards side, JT Hayes hit it best. My favorite play by surprise is going to come off the bench. It's Montrezl Harrell. I think bigs are just crushing this OKC team. Who is going to stop Montrezl Harrell? None of these guys are. It's just going to be the Trez show off the bench. Again, the risk is he doesn't play many minutes, but we've seen it time and time again. This guy doesn't need many minutes to get it done. I see this being a similar, maybe not as good as the Charlotte spot was. He put up 47 DK points in 27 minutes. But if we get 25, 26 minutes from him today, I think he crushes.
All right, let's head on over to our Hawks expert to talk about the Atlanta Hawks and the Memphis Grizzlies. JT Hayes. We got two stud point guards, Trae Young, John Morant. Should be a fun game to watch. I think they're both good spend-up options on this slate, but they're more contrarian ones, right? If you're looking for a 5% guy, no one's really going to be on them, I don't think, on this slate. What are you doing here with the Hawks and the Grizzlies?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting spot here. I prefer Ja over Trae in this spot. It's been a little bit since we've seen a ceiling game from Ja, but this has been the spot. We saw it with Dejounte Murray on Wednesday night where he put up in the 50s, and I think Ja is going to get there. Yeah, I mostly tried to avoid Memphis, similar to what AP was saying about Oklahoma City. Memphis, a better team, of course, but the rotations, 10 guys in the rotation last game, and Ja was the only guy or one of two that got over 30 minutes. So it's been tough unless there's been an injury. I know that Jaren Jackson Jr. has been playing well. He's always been volatile, and even though he's playing well, he's getting 28 minutes. Brandon Clark is popping in optos. He's just 3.5. 4 of his last 5 games over 20 DK points, which is more than what you need at that price point. I just don't trust it. I just don't trust that he's going to continue to get minutes. I know, people are talking about, well, they're moving Adams out and moving him in, and I just don't think it's that well thought out. I think the rotations are not something that he's like, all right, I'm doing this for a particular reason. So on the Memphis side, for me, it's probably going to be Ja, and I do have a lot of interest in him. I think this is a really good matchup for him against a Hawks team that has started to play a little bit faster and started to gel a little bit more. They actually put together some pretty good games, had an easy win against San Antonio the other night. And on the Hawks side, like I said, I'm not all that interested in Trey here. Of course, you can play him in tournaments. Bogdanovic had a nice game out last time against the Spurs. Kevin Huerter is priced down at 4.6. Cam Reddish comes off the bench. And then you've got the two guys down low, John Collins and Clint Capella. It's just a slate where I don't know if they have the type of upside in this matchup that I'm going to need comparative to some other players at those positions. So I don't know that I'll have either of those guys in my lineups.
All right, AP, we'll head on over to you. Hawks and Grizzlies. Doesn't feel like a game you want to load up on, but 1 point spread, 226.5 total. I don't know. I don't think we should ignore it, but I do think it's a game that we're not just like firing on and loading up in all of our lineups.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the spots that could potentially win tournaments tonight in DFS formats with Ja Morant going against Trae Young. This matchup, like JT just said, has been so good for opposing point guards. I think Ja is due for a ceiling game, and his floor is so safe, even with Dillon Brooks in there, okay? Dillon Brooks loves to get the ball, loves to shoot. That's going to take away from Ja's ceiling, but man, like he still is getting all the looks that he wants. So I love Ja in this spot. I think 9.6 is a nice value relative to kind of where his price has been. Not too long ago, he was a 10K plus guy. The other matchup I like is for Jaren Jackson, or it could be Brandon Clark off the bench. Those two have kind of been splitting minutes a little bit. I think both are phenomenal plays. Maybe Jaren Jackson, the better play in tournaments, and then for salary relief, Brandon Clark could be one of those guys, 3.5K, getting 25 plus minutes over his last two games. And now he gets a matchup that's been very good for power forwards. So I think going off the top of my head, I think it was, Miles Bridges, I remember, had a monster game. I think Wendell Carter also had a really big game against the Hawks here. So again, those are the two guys I like. Dillon Brooks, they're being really aggressive with his price tag. For him to get there at this price and with the minutes that he's playing, he needs to have a really good shooting night. I'm not going to go there. I'm probably Xing him from my player pool. So for me, it's Ja Morant, it's Jaren Jackson, it's Brandon Clark. Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark, I'm not going to have in the same lineup. I will have them paired with Ja Morant. And then the run back, I think, is simple. It's Trae Young. Trae Young, like JTA said, again, he's in a groove right now, and they're playing at a faster pace. He's taking 20 plus shots a game, and he's taking a bunch of 3-pointers, and he's making a bunch of 3-pointers. And whenever he's doing that, it seems like his assists, it seems like all of his peripheral stats go up too. It just seems like when he's playing better, the assists go up, everything else goes up. Which you see often with is the case with some of these star players. So sign me up for the studs here. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to these guys.
When you're making the shots, you're feeling better, the energy's better, and the ball finds energy. So I think that can kind of play into it. And Trae Young, I was reading a little bit about him today, and he's more prepared for some defenses now than he has been in the past years. He's a younger player. Obviously, some teams gave him fits, but he's getting better and better, and he's definitely in a good spot at 9.3K. I like him and Ja Morant. You can pair those two together and then fill your lineup that with some really good value and make a really strong team. Let's head on over to the next game, JT. Celtics, Spurs. This is one that I don't know. I don't really want to play too many Celtics on this slate. I think they're fine. They're okay, but not guys I want to really put in my lineups. And on the other side, DeJounte Murray's been great this year. He's definitely someone you can consider. You got Kate Bates-Diop, who's considered a decent value on this slate. He's 3K, but I think we have better values that we'll get to later on that I would rather go to. But if you want the full-on punt, he's there for you. Total 5.7. There are some options, but this is not an amazing game for DFS. What do you think?
It's an amazing spot for the guards on the Celtics. And the other night, was talking about this just a few minutes ago. Trae Young and Bogdanovic put up 98 combined points against the Spurs. 98 combined fantasy points, not real life points. The bench guards put up another 35. So you're closing in on 140 some odd, 130 some fantasy points from the guard position. That's been the case all year long. It was the case all year long last year. Devin Vassell is out for the Spurs here. Doug McDermott, who plays forward, is going to be out. The Celtics are going to be without Josh Richardson. Jaylen Brown is going to play, and they say he's going to play a few more minutes. This is a spot that he and Smart, now it depends on what we think about Jaylen Brown's minutes, but I think if you give Jaylen Brown 30 minutes in this spot and Marcus Smart gets his 34, 36, I can see both of them smashing value in this spot against the Spurs. The worst thing to do in DFS, the worst feeling in DFS, is trying to figure out what Greg Popovich is going to do, particularly when he's shorthanded on an 11-game slate. So the last game, when Vassell got hurt, it was Bryn Forbes that got 20 minutes. Bryn Forbes. Do I want to play Bryn Forbes? I don't care if he's $3,000. I don't want to play Bryn Forbes in my lineups. I'm not going to do that. So you mentioned Keita Bates-Diop. If there was one guy that I was going to look to in terms of who benefits from these injuries, it's probably Lonnie Walker. Lonnie Walker is 3.8. He's actually shown to be a decent player. I can see him being one of these players who will thrive once he gets away from the Spurs organization, like we've seen with a bunch of these other guys. And then you mentioned Jakob Poeltl, who's just 5'7" here, and no Robert Williams as well for the Celtics. That significantly diminishes their interior defense. They gave up 33 DraftKings points to LaMarcus Aldridge the other night, and LMA played about 28 minutes. So I think you'll see Poeltl go 34 to 36. At 5'7", he could easily come in at 7x his price. So there are some plays here. I just, like you said, I don't know that I want to, if there's a value spot that I think it's okay to avoid, I think it's the Spurs.
All right. JT presented the question to you, AP, well, to me as well, but you want to play some Bryn Forbes? I don't want to play any Bryn Forbes. I don't really want to play too many guys from this game. I think it's a good game you can mix and match some stuff, but it's definitely not one to be overweight on. What does the heat chart say, or the heat map? What are we doing here, AP?
Yeah, so I think this is a really interesting game tonight because DeJounte Murray is getting, I'm showing decent ownership on him, over 20%. And rightfully so. The guy has been absolutely crushing. But you got to look a little deeper. I think what a lot of people are doing is just clicking his name, looking at the box score, and seeing that he's been crushing every single night. But look at the Celtics team that has been much better defensively, especially against these guards. I mean, you got Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Grant Williams, Al Horford, and then Dennis Schroeder comes in and play. He's been much better defensively over the past year and a half. Like, he's made so much improvements on that end of the court. Tough matchup for DeJounte Murray. So let's look. Let's go and see. So DeJounte Murray, who has he played recently? He's played Atlanta. Not very good against opposing point guards. He's played the Suns. The Suns, surprisingly, as Mangone said earlier in the show, have given up a lot of points to opposing point guards. He's played the Lakers and the Clippers. Lakers have been one of the best matchups. But in there, he played the Wolves, and he absolutely busted, putting up 23 fantasy points, 2 for 12. And what did we say about the Wolves this year? Much improved on the defensive end of the court. I'm actually, despite the fact that I've played DeJounte Murray quite a bit, I'm fading him tonight. I want to move off of what I think at 9-4 is going to be a popular play, especially with these other players out. So in tournaments, if he beats me, it's going to take a monster game because there's so many other plays on this slate. I just want to move off of them, get leverage elsewhere. Is kind of going to be how I attack this spot. I think Derek White is okay, but I think Lonnie Walker is the value that I want some exposure to. And then Pirtle, I think the comments there are fine. What I'm trying to figure out is what are they going to do with Thad Young? Does he enter the rotation at all? And this is a question for you guys. I don't feel good about it because Drew Eubanks is there, and it's like, well, why are they going to give Thad Young a little bit more run? But if he were to get more run here, he would be a guy that is a good fantasy point per minute player. I just am not confident at all in the rotation there. So I don't know if you guys have a take on him at all. Right now, he's not in my player pool. He's just one of the guys I had marked that I wanted to think about a little bit more.
So I'll just let me ask you, because I saw that in Discord someone asked about Thad Young. What is his price on DraftKings?
4-1.
Yeah. So I think no, and I think no because unless you think Thad Young is going to get you like 40 DraftKings points, right?
Right.
I think then, but I think that range of outcome is so rare for this team in these rotations. I think you're going to see more. This is why I went back and I looked to see what they did last game after Vassell got ruled out. I don't remember if McDermott was in or not. I don't know, but I'll take another look at that. And that's why I saw Bryn Forbes played 20 minutes and Lonnie Walker actually only played like 18 or something like that. And so I think starters are going to be important. I don't think you would see Thad Young in the starting rotation here because you've got Keldon and then you've got Pirtle down low. And I think, unless he does something that's logical and says, I'm going to play my 5 best players in a matchup where we can take advantage of the Celtics around the rim, then I just don't see it happening. I don't think he will get that significant of a bump here, Mango, unless you think differently.
No, I think once we're talking Thad Young on a 13-game slate,
right.
Should,
that's a good comment.
I love talking through it, right? I mean, it's we do have other really good games to talk about here that I definitely want to discuss. The next one is not that one. That's the one issue we got here. Pelicans and Jazz. I'll go to you, AP. Herb Jones being there, I think, helps them defensively, which will help them get easier buckets in transition. Brandon Ingram has been better, at least a little bit as of late, but I don't love this spot. This feels like a really good cross-me-off game. How about you?
Yeah, definitely a cross-me-off game. I mean, would I be surprised if Nah came in off the bench and hit some shots? No, but at 5'2", I don't see the reason why I'd need to play him. Like, there's so many other guys there. I'm crossing them off, and then Donovan Mitchell 8'4". I mean, he's fine, but it's like, gosh, it doesn't seem like the right spot with the Jazz. Healthy, you got Clarkson who gets a ton of runs, so I'm probably just going to cross this game off.
Yeah, JT, I should mention like Josh Hart at 5'6" and 5'9" is interesting because the minutes he sees, but I think it's a bad slate for him. I think with Herb Jones being back there and muddies up the rotation a little more, I'm out on this game. How about you?
Yeah, same here. I mean, I looked at it. I looked at Clarkson's price at 5.0. If you're multi-entering and you're doing 150, you want to include like 5% of him just in case this game gets out of hand, then that's fine. But the Pelicans, just like I said about the Wizards, they're no longer this fantasy friendly option where you could look at playing people against them every single time they're out. So I'm going to be out on this game.
All right, JT, let's go back to you and talk about the Milwaukee Bucks and the Denver Nuggets, where, hey, Jokic sounds like a great idea if you get him in and he's healthy, but I believe he's still questionable, right? We don't have the official status on him, or is he in? What's the status there, JT?
Questionable as of when we began the show, and I don't believe we've gotten news yet.
Yeah, so we're obviously waiting on that. We didn't know what's going to happen with him. Bones Highland is doubtful as well, but if Jokic is out, that'd be really good for Will Barton. That'd be really good for Aaron Gordon. JT, would you be slamming those guys in your lineup here against the Bucks?
Prices are up on those guys. Will Barton 7.2, Aaron Gordon 6.6. The only player really whose price hasn't moved all that much is Monty Morris at 4.7. On the other side, Giannis is now priced appropriately at 12.2. Bobby Portis is priced for the role he's playing. He's been fantastic. I think he'd be a contrarian play if Jokic was out at 7-1. But I think even at that price point, now you start to wonder, how are the Nuggets going to keep this game close? The one thing without Jokic these last 3 games is they've given up a ton of fantasy production to opposing teams. With Milwaukee being completely healthy, though, Drew Holiday at 6'8", I think, on DraftKings is probably where my greatest interest would lie, one way or the other. And then you mentioned it. If Jokic is in, I do think he's going to get a lot of ownership because he's priced, below Giannis in that same game. And I think people will gravitate there. But I'm worried a little bit about the health. It's unlike him to miss this many games. And especially with this matchup, I may just take a wait and see approach and be mostly out on this game as well.
All right, let's go over to you, AP. Nuggets, Bucks, 2 studs that you can spend on. You got Giannis, you got Jokic, obviously a good spot. What are you doing here for these guys? Are they raw point plays for you?
Yeah, so Jokic, here's what you do. So he was questionable coming into that last game before the mini break that they had. And we all I think half of us thought he was going to play. I think Hoop was the one guy that thought he wasn't going to play. I had a bunch of them, and I kind of messed it up. I had him in the center spot, and then so I was forced to leave a ton of salary on the table because I didn't make the adjustments in time. But so what you do with this spot, he's 11-5 on DraftKings. If he plays, I think he's a phenomenal play because they have been terrible without him, especially offensively. So they need Jokic out there on the court. And here's what you do. You get him in the utility spot. If he doesn't play, you pivot to Steph Curry, who's 11-4. An easy pivot, makes a ton of sense. You could just move all your Jokic to Curry and feel very good about it, in my opinion, in a matchup against Dame Lillard. That's going to be my plan tonight. So I'm going to create a rule that just says there's going to be 0 Jokic in the center spot. If I'm going to play Jokic, it's in the utility spot so I can make that switch. But yeah, I think he's a phenomenal play here if he plays. And then Drew Holiday is the guy on the Bucks side I would have interest in. If Jokic doesn't play, you could add Campazzo in as a value either way, with Bones likely not to play, and with just the lack of depth that they have running point there. He's been a guy who's seen 25 plus minutes over the past few games. But if Jokic is back, he's the one guy, the main only guy that I have interest in.
All right, let's move on. Talk about the next game. Before we do that, let's get the like and subscribe. We're at 422 watching. JT, we're getting towards the end of the show here. What do we got to get that to? 200? Is that the number? Do we got a little higher? What do you think here, JT?
Again, I mentioned, right? It's the day after Thanksgiving, a nice holiday weekend, the beginning of Christmas season, Black Friday. AP, are you out shopping, getting deals on Black Friday, or are you here working hard for the subscribers?
I'm here. Actually, my family is just about to leave. They're going over to my parents' house for dinner, and then they're all going down to the zoo to go look at lights and everything. And I'm here just, sacrificing my time for the members. And we're going to have to update Discord. We're going to have to monitor the projections and do that. So I'm strapped. My hands are tied. I can't do anything about it. Just, sacrificing for all of you out there. No, it's going to be a fun night. NBA, we're going to have fun. Luckily got out of the zoo thing because it's cold here and it just sounds very boring. So I got to watch out.
I'd love to be Black Friday shopping with those Pensac bucks I've earned in the chat. So I can't. I'm here. I'm stuck with AP. We're grinding away. I can't spend my Pensac bucks. So yeah, I'm here helping the people out, dedicating my time, JT.
Yeah. So much like many of the subscribers, AP, you're coming in looking for a little bit of a break, right? But in turn,
exactly.
the subscribers are benefiting, and 176 is not enough. I see 400. What'd you say? 422 watching.
413.
That's not even half. Let's do something. Let's set a achievable goal, as the educators would say. Let's go for 227. 227. That's it. It's not a flat number. It's very achievable. We only have to get about 50 more, 49 more, 227.
All right, let's get there. And we got to get on to the next game because we got two really important games to talk about, not too much time. And listen, we can pull the plug on the plays real quick. So it's not too hard to do, especially because we're crunched for time here. Portland Trailblazers, Golden State Warriors, 225 total. JT, I'll go right back to you. AP just talked about it. You can pivot over to Steph Curry. Amazing option tonight. Do you have the money to spend on him? The Warriors only have 10 available guys. And some of those available guys, the names are Chris Chiozza. They're Gary Payton, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Bielitsa. I mean, they are a little shorthanded. And now you got Portland on the road, and they've been great at home this year. Damian Lillard, you talked about his Thanksgiving a little bit. He's definitely in play, a little homecoming game there in Golden State. I'm sure he had some good turkey and stuffing. He's feeling all great. What are you doing here with the Blazers and the Warriors?
Yeah, first I gotta say my guy B Fam in the YouTube chat is testing us. He's testing us. He's saying, "Hey fam, don't worry. Even if we don't leave likes, they won't give the plays." So now you know for damn sure if we don't get to 227, there are no plays that are going to be coming out. B Fam, hate to do that. Hate to see that. But yeah, I just saw that news where the Warriors are going to be very shorthanded. AP talked about my favorite play on this team already, Steph Curry. He's got this little back and forth with my guy, Damian Lillard. And it's fantastic to see every time they link up. They played earlier this season, and Steph dropped a nice 60 piece in a pretty easy win there. So it's interesting. What I'm trying to decide is, does this create any advantages for Portland? Because I was kind of off of Portland earlier in the day. Don't love a lot of the pricing. I don't love this matchup for opposing teams. Warriors have been playing really, really good defense. Looks like the starters are all intact, so they're not going to be missing any starters. And I don't know. I don't know if playing any of these Blazers bench guys is a little bit thin. I see that, Jusuf Nurkic is popping in some optimals. I'm definitely not going to go back to him. Had a monster game against the Kings, but before that, he was playing like 20 minutes a game, and I'm pretty confident that that was solely due to the limitations that the Kings had and matchups. So, yeah, it's Steph. I guess maybe you could play Draymond Green here if we think he's going to get a few more minutes at that forward position at just 6'7". I don't really want Wiggins. I don't want Poole at 7'1". And Payton has the guy who's done a lot of damage off the bench for the Warriors here. I think he's in the 4K range. So he might be someone that you maybe take a look at, if not on the main slate, definitely on the late slate.
All right, AP, I'll go over to you about the Blazers and Warriors. Pretty good game to get some exposure to. 225 total. What are you doing here with this game?
Yeah, I think this is a great spot for Chef Curry, who has absolutely dominated Dame in this matchup. And his price tag continues to leave him kind of a bit in like no man's land as far as ownership is concerned, but we've seen it time and time again. All it takes is like a mediocre shooting night from Jordan Poole or Wiggins, who have been playing out of their minds of late, for Curry just to take over and get up a ton of shots. I think this is going to be one of the better matchups for him tonight. So I definitely have a ton of interest, and just go, with how shorthanded they are too. I mean, we should see a much tighter rotation. So I have a ton of interest in Curry tonight. I think he's going to be a phenomenal play. And then, Dame at 9-8, the Blazers have been playing a little bit better. The problem is they're, they it's either like Dame or CJ McCollum. So, and the fact is the Warriors have been playing great defense as well. One guy that I hope is chalky. If he beats me, he beats me. Is Jusuf Nurkic, because this is a disaster matchup for opposing bigs. I think Nurkic is a guy that could get absolutely run off the court here. Coming off a monster game, a monster game in the absolute best matchup against the Kings, where he just dominated in every way, shape, or form. Now he gets the exact, the worst matchup on the board against the Warriors, who are fast, who are constantly getting up the court, who pass the ball a ton. And the NBA is a league of switching now. And a guy like Nurkic is not going to be able to switch, and it's going to leave guys like Wiggins, Poole, Curry open with Draymond kind of running things. So I have a ton of, I'm not on Nurkic. I'm fading him. if anything, you could go Nasir Little. I think he's going to be better defensively, a much better fit for this matchup here tonight. I would be very cautious with guys like Larry Nance, guys like Yusuf Nurkic, Cody Zeller, those random bigs there. I just don't think it's a good matchup for them at all. And then, on the Warriors side, it's Curry for me.
All right, let's move on and talk about the next game. We got big news to talk about, obviously. They don't have Harrison Barnes, those Kings. They do not have Rashawn Holmes. And you know what that means? That means it's Alex Len time, which the people really want to see. Everyone wants to see Alex Len. He is just such a great basketball player. JT, I'll go over to you. What are you doing here with these Kings? Because there's a lot of value here. Buddy Hield is a great play, I think. De'Aaron Fox, they talked about they want him to play a little bit faster, and they want the team to play faster. And that's going to result in more De'Aaron Fox, the ball in his hand and driving to the hoop and getting after it. So I think this is a really, really good spot for a lot of these Kings. I'm sure a lot of people think that. I'm sure they're going to be popular. And it's one of the last games of the night. How are you handling this Kings and Lakers game?
Yeah, so I'm excited for this game, but I also have a slight bit of concern, and I'll explain why. When you rule out Harrison Barnes and you rule out Rashawn Holmes, one of the things that happened in the game on Wednesday night is that led to an outstanding performance by Yusuf Nurkic. He got nearly 60 fantasy points. He ended up playing 30 some odd minutes. He'd been playing 20 minutes a game. I think the Lakers are pretty well coached. I think if Frank Vogel is smart, they will throw the ball to Anthony Davis every single possession down low. And I think at 10-8, Anthony Davis was off the injury report. He's the only guy that is normally questionable that's not questionable. It's a scary play. He's going to come in under 10% owned. On the Kings, a lot of these guys become better plays. You mentioned Alex Len. Chimezie Metu has been out of the rotation completely, and Marvin Bagley has entered the rotation. So I think it's more likely you see Bagley get the start than Tristan Thompson or than Metu. And I do have interest in Marvin Bagley because we've seen what an offensive force he can be. And at 4-2 in this matchup that has been good for just about every position, every opposing position against the Lakers, particularly point guard, particularly the guard position. But I think that Bagley, if he gets 25 minutes, is going to go for 7x his salary. The one concern I have is Alvin Gentry came in and he said, we are going to play faster. We want to play faster. We want to get back to playing fast. And they have done that. What I have seen in watching these games, I think it has something to do with Harrison Barnes' foot injury, is these guys are not in shape to play at the speed that Alvin Gentry wants them to play. And then for Anthony Davis, is this a matchup where he can get up and down the court without completely breaking down? So I think the way I'm going to handle it is look at guys like Bagley and Davis and say 1 out of 3 lineups. But I think you're right. Guys like Buddy Hield, and De'Aaron Fox. I really don't have a lot of interest in Russ at 11K. I just think there are better point guard plays for the price, and not a ton of interest in LeBron James as of right now.
All right, we'll go to AP. But before we do that, guys, again, hit that like, hit that subscribe to the video. It helps us out a ton. You're only 3 away. And I do want to say, I forgot, so we do have a little bit of time if we want to. We don't have the final countdown show coming up with JSU and Holden. Send your complaints to K Fallick, right, JT? Is that what we do? Send the DMs to K Fallick for the complaints for no final countdown show?
Yeah, DMs, and preferably between 6:45 and 6:55 is when he likes to get those. He likes to really be in his DMs and working on that and getting answers out for the people.
All right, so no final countdown show, but we're going to break down this last game in AP. There's a lot to break down here in this one. I think it's a pretty good one. Obviously, you got to like some of these Kings plays, despite, they lost Luke Walton, but now Alex Len is making rotation decisions where he told Damian Jones after he made a nice basket, you keep Damian and he's playing great. So now Alex Len is making decisions. That's how much of a shit show it is on this team.
The cash guys just love this painful guy that's named Alex Len. So here, like JTA's shout out to him. He broke it down perfectly. So Marvin Bagley is a beast on the offensive end of the court. They're going to need him to play for how he does offensively. However, he's like one of the worst defensive players at his position in the league. Shout out to Spread on the bet side. He's a Kings guy too. He's talked. Me and him have talked about it a ton with this Kings team. However, they're going to need him out there. I think Anthony Davis. No one's going to play him. JT said under 10%. I think under 3%. Like I think.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think here's what happens. I did it too. I'm like, okay, we're not playing Russ. We're not playing LeBron. But early this morning, I was like, man, this matchup is just so good for AD. This isn't a game where this is the perfect put AD at the 5 and just let him bully these guys. He does it in the easiest matchups, and they love to spotlight AD in these spots. I'm telling you, like the guy could go. I mean, he could bust, sure, because there's a lot of usage to go around. But if you look at the rotation, the guys that don't jive together are Westbrook and LeBron. I mean, AD can work with either one of them. I think JT's right. I think it's get the ball to AD in the paint, let him work against the likes of Marvin Bagley or Alex Len or Damian Jones or Tristan Thompson. I mean, the other thing too, I'm under projecting Len. I'm under projecting. I think the 5s on the Kings side, they have three guys they could rotate in. And here's what I see happening. I see AD getting a ton of easy buckets, and I just see them, Gentry taking Len out, putting someone else, just trying to figure out what works. But I do think what he has to do is give Bagley minutes tonight. So I like AD, I like Bagley, I like the Fox call. I think why like Fox has been so tilting. Let that tilt keep people off of Fox. But I think we continue to stream opposing point guards against the Lakers, against Russ, until they start to change defensively. I haven't seen it yet. I think Fox is going to crush. I think Hield could even crush. And I even think Davion Mitchell off the bench, 3-4. I think he could crush too.
Yeah, like the Mitchell call. I love Buddy Hield. He's one of my favorites in this game. Lot to like in this one. And the AD call, it's definitely one that I've been fading these guys most slates, unless it's been like when like LeBron's been back. But I'm going to consider it a little bit more here for sure. But that'll wrap it up for us. Obviously, there's no final countdown coming up. Yes, we are going to give the plays. You guys got the number there, JT, right? So that's good. I thought I maybe had the people for a second there, but 227. Now we're at 232. So we can give out those plays of the day. AP, I'll go to you first. Who is the guy that you are playing in a bunch of your teams? Obviously, it doesn't have to be the lock button or anything, but who is your play of the day?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I want to say Marvin Bagley. Like, I don't. The problem is he could end up being really chalky if they announce him as a starter. But as of right now, I'm not showing a lot of ownership on him. So Marvin Bagley 4-2, maybe with the uncertainty of the situation, maybe that keeps ownership down. But man, if he starts against this Lakers team, I just think he's going to be a smash play.
All right. I think that's a good call there. I'll give you an off the board play, and it's definitely kind of against what I was saying, but if Plumlee could be out, and I could see like, what are the Hornets going to do if Plumlee is out, or even with it being a game time decision, you could just not be right. I do think you might see them just try and do their best to run the Timberwolves off the court if they can instead. And Kelly Oubre is someone that is way too cheap at 4.2K. And it's rare to have guys at 4.2 that have 40-point upside or even 50-point upside. And he technically has that. It's more of an off-the-board play, GPP kind of guy, but he won't see in my cash games, but he's someone that I think you should definitely consider as a very, very low-owned tournament play to win you that 100K to first prize pool. JT, I'll go over to you. Obviously, we want to hop on the plane and get the Eiffel Tower play of the day. Is it Mr. Damian Lillard? Who is it on this slate?
Yeah, the Eiffel Tower play of the day, brought to you by Air France. France is in the air, as always. And, I'll tell you, I've been fluctuating between two guys. So I'm going to mention the guy that it's not, just because I think he's going to get between 7 and 8x his salary at like 4% ownership. And that's Marcus Smart. This has been one of the best point guard matchups for every team going against the Spurs. They just cannot guard, if you will, opposing guards. So I like him, but the guy who is going to potentially put up 80 points tonight at low ownership because people are scared, and I'm a little bit nervous. I wouldn't go 100% here about whether or not he's made of glass, but I think there's no better matchup in DFS right now than opposing centers against the Kings. You take out Rashawn Holmes, that's fine. He doesn't guard anybody anyway. But you take out Harrison Barnes, he's actually the guy who will give up the tough fouls and will at least slow the opposition down. Alex Len doesn't play any defense. Marvin Bagley, hey, he understood in college. You don't get to the NBA by playing defense, and he doesn't do it anymore in the NBA. So Anthony Davis, Eiffel Tower, play of the day.
There you go. And Harrison Barnes, he does slow the opposition down because he loves the ball handle way too much and shoot way too many shots and try to ISO because it's Harrison Barnes. But I don't know what to tell you. There's no more Luke Walton there. So thankfully we are saved from that. But that'll wrap it up for us, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. For me, Mangone, JT Hayes, and AP, we will see you guys later.